Hello and welcome to episode 11, the winter meeting episode of one Cardinal, one Cub, and one beer. And yes, I am reveling in Cubdom, and I'm in a very good mood, even though we did lose Contrares. We'll get into that in a moment. I do want to remind you, if you want to contact us, our email is one Cardinal or one card, one Cub, and one card, one cup, one beer at gmail.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and for heaven's sakes, please write down here somewhere. It's hard to point when you're like the other way, in the lower right hand corner. For those of you who are on Mac or PC or on your phone, please hit the subscribe button and subscribe to our channel so you can keep up with everything that we're doing, and follow us on social medias. We do try to keep things fresh on there and keep you up to date with what's going on. Also, I do want to let you know that we will be starting Patreon at the start of the year, probably the second week of January. I'll have time to do that, being, it's the holidays and I don't have any time to do anything right now. So, JJ, I'm going to ask you, because I had this on an Excel file, the contest, everybody's name and who they, I can't find it now. And my computer's telling me it's gone. So with Judge signing, do you have an update on the contest?
Yes, we have. Most people thought Judge was going back to the Yankees in our contest.
I didn't.
Yeah, I'd say about 80% of the people that were in the contest thought Judge was coming back. We have a few people that don't have any of the three free agents right at all. A lot more have one, a few have two, but there's one that have Robbie Spear, I believe out of Hillsboro, Missouri, has all three free agents. He got Rizzo, he got Peterson, and he got Judge now. So he's leading the pack right now.
And for people who are playing but are not eligible, my son Max is 3 for 3 too.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, he's not the kind to gloat. Good thing, because I'd probably never hear the end of it. But if it was me 3-0 and he was like 1-2 like me, I would certainly let him know that a few times. But that's what good parenting's all about.
Amen. That's right. Well, I'm 2 for 3. I'm 2 for 3 myself. So I tell you what, I'll post something then and let everybody know. I talked to 2 or 3 of the people today. They got a hold of me and was letting me know they got the right answer. So that's pretty good. It's been a great week, huh, Vince? You wanna do a little talking on your Cubs right now and fill everybody in?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do Cubs news and rumors. First of all, we thus far in the winter meetings, they end tonight, but thus far in the winter meetings, we have signed Cody Bellinger, that takes care of our center field issue. 1 year, $17.5 million. That seems like a lot of money. It really isn't a whole lot of money, because we have, I think, between 80 and 100 million in cap space before we hit the luxury tax. We have money to spend, and that's one of the reasons we can say, okay, we'll do 1 year, 17.5 million, because if it doesn't work out, it's not like we're stuck with it. And players, if he does still have stuff in the tank, and he's only 26, for heaven's sakes, if that shoulder's good and he can bounce back and he is on a prove it contract, maybe he'll have a monster year for the Cubs. I'm not counting on it, but what I am counting on is someone in center field who can run down the ball, catch it, and throw it in, because we didn't see a whole lot of that at center field this past year. So any offense that we can get will be a bonus, but definitely the upgrade as far as center field goes defensively is appreciated. And I don't—
You called that one.
Yeah,
You said Bellinger.
Even if he has a monster year, I don't see him coming back, and I'll tell you why. Because I see him as holding the place until Pete Crow Armstrong is our center fielder. Of course, injuries can happen to Armstrong. Crow Armstrong is, I guess, his official last name, his given last name. We always call him PCA, Cub fans, so I'll probably call him PCA. injuries can happen, and if that happens, we will need a center fielder in 24 or 2024. Who knows? But I see the plan as now being he's going to hold center field until PCA is called up and takes that position. That also answers our issue at first base, because we can have Mervis play, and then we can give him a spell and let Bellinger play first base and put someone in the outfield, someone who can just hold it down for a game or two at a time. The thing about Bellinger and Mervis, they're both left-handed, and so there's not going to be a platoon situation at first, but I do see against tough left-handers, they're probably not going to throw Mervis out there to face the tough lefties as a rookie, and Bellinger, who's got a lot more experience, will probably take that. So very excited about Cody Bellinger coming 1 year, 17.5 million. We also added to our pitching staff. Pitching is a little thin this year in free agency, but I am glad that we picked up Jameson Taillon, 4 years, $68 million. He was a former #1 pick by the Pirates, I think in 2014. And he has had a decent career. He's not the hard thrower he used to be. He's had 2 Tommy John surgeries, but he's a pitcher who has legitimately 6 pitches. And to put that in perspective, the only other pitcher in Major League Baseball that can support 6 pitches at this time that are effective pitches is Yu Darvish. So he's in elite company. So you really don't know what's coming because you can throw them all for strikes and you can throw them all effectively. He's not going to win 20 games. He's not going to have a 2.5 ERA, but he's going to hold down that second, third slot in the rotation, eat the innings, and give us a lot of competitive starts. So I'm also happy about that. The Cubs had a serious meeting with Carlos Correa, and this is how serious it went. Cubs management was there. Jed Hoyer was there. Carter Hawkins was there. David Ross was present, and Boris and Correa were both present. Now, for the player to be present in a meeting, you're a little bit further down the road, so it's getting serious. So we are in deep with Correa. There's also rumor that the backup plan, if we can't land Correa, is to go aggressively at Swanson. We kind of look at him as like maybe the 3rd or 4th best of this class of shortstop, but hey, man, he's a Gold Glover and an All-Star. We're like, yeah, he's just like the 4th best. There's a rumor that's been floated out there that has been substantiated by a few people in the media that they're I don't know how much traction there was, but there is a possibility that if Correa falls through, the Cubs go hard at both Swanson and Bogarts and try to land them both, kind of like Texas did last year with Yeager
Corey Seager
and Simeon. So if that's something that they would do, that gives them some flexibility. I was thinking, maybe Swanson is short and Bogarts is second and move Nico Horner to the outfield. Max was telling me, you'd probably put Bogarts at third and, keep the infield together now that you got Bellinger. So, but I don't see that happen, but it's kind of a fun thing to dream about.
It's fun to think about.
Yeah. And we are still in on Senga, the Japanese pitcher. And I haven't heard a whole lot coming from anybody. It's just that these are the teams that are in on him. But as far as negotiations and stuff like that, I really haven't heard anybody that's like taking the reins there. So we'll see about that. We also Drew Smiley, who pitched for us last year, pitched effectively when he was healthy. He's a free agent and he likes Chicago. We like him. And I think there's a good shot that we will re-sign him again. And what we are doing is we don't really have a #1 starter. Even with Senga, he's projected to be a #2 starter. But we got a lot of 2s and 3s, possibly, which would be a competitive pitching staff. Finally, I'll say this. One of the last week when we did our prospects segment, I didn't bring up this guy because the Cubs did not leave him or did not put him on the 40-man roster and said, you're a free agent. A pitcher named Braylon Marquez, who was our number one prospect before injury. And the last 2 years, he's had some injuries. Now, this is a guy who did hit triple digits when he was in the minors, when he was healthy. We have went ahead and signed him to a minor league contract. So we do have him under contract, even though we left him under unprotected. So they must have insight that says, we think that we can get something out of him. And if they did, that's kind of like, I think that's a pretty smart way of going through this. You didn't have to protect him on the 40-man roster, but you went ahead and re-signed him. And speaking of minor leagues and unprotected players, the Rule 5 draft happened, I think just about an hour or two ago, and the Cubs passed. So we have no Rule 5 players. And did you see who the Yankees picked up?
No, I did not.
They picked up a right-handed pitcher, and his name is Wilking, Wilking, Wilking Rodriguez, and they got him from the Yankees. So don't know anything about him. I just found that as soon as
we started doing this.
Computer. So I do have my phone on, and I'll be checking the news. So when the Cubs do sign Correa, Senga, Swanson, and Bogarts tonight, and you'll be the first. And we're also going to trade for Sean Murphy. So that's Tuesday before we started here. We have a 138 person in low A, and I think he's a perfect trade for Sean Murphy. So,
oh man, that lineup's going to look great. The Cubs are going to turn it all around in one nice winner.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, we don't have a team that can compete for the World Series. As even if we sign Correa, even if we do sign a few of these players that I hope we do, we're not really looking to be competitive in that we're going to be the Astros, the Yankees, the Dodgers. We are looking at that, getting to the step where we are a postseason team. Now, of course, any team can catch lightning in a bottle and make a run. That is always possible. But just to have a competitive team in our division where we can make the playoffs and keep building from that is what we're shooting for.
Oh yeah, I like the direction you guys are going. I think some good moves. I tell you what, this week's been fun. Everything's going on. You got the winter meetings all week, big moves. We had I didn't even know they had this award, the All MLB team. Paul Goldschmidt has pretty much won everything but Gold Glove this year for first base. So he was on the first team.
Sucks.
Yeah, that guy. But man, what a year. If he just does his normal yearly rate, that'll be great. I can't see him increasing on what he did last year. But what a year for Paul Goldschmidt. And the second team had Nolan Arenado and Ryan Helsley on it. So the Cardinals had 3 players on the 2 squads. That was very nice. The MLB had their first draft lottery, so just like the NBA and all the other sports. And I like this because a lot of teams, Astros, they tanked for years and years and got a bunch of good draft choices together. And now it's like the lottery system. And the Pirates did get the first pick coming up in the draft. So good for the Pirates. And they've got 3 good players on their team. I think they're on the upswing. We'll see what they do with it. The winter meetings, I know Quintana signed with somebody. Who was that? Do you know he got a 2-year deal?
Mets. Yeah.
Mets. Okay, because they lost Walker.
Yeah.
Walker went to the Phillies. So it's fun watching all these players moving around. And today the Cardinals got Wilson Contrares. I'm going to say this first. I'm a purist. I like to see a player stay with the team they're on. Tony Gwynn, I always wanted to see him be a Padre. Ernie Banks, Stan Musial, those guys. I'm a little sad that Wilson is. I'd like to see him stay his whole career. He's a big part of the Cubs' success they had, but I'm so happy he's with us, and I'm welcoming him with open arms. Kisner and Herrera, they just didn't hit last year, and now we have Wilson Contrares. I've got some numbers on him. He got a 5-year deal at $87.5 million in today's market. That's very reasonable.
Yeah, I didn't think that. I thought he'd go 4 years with a higher
Yeah.
annual average. But he probably wanted the security of a fifth year because that'll take him to 35. So, which would be about where he's winding up his career.
Oh
So
yeah, he's 30 years old. I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't quite sure how old he was, but they'll take him up to year 35. And if he can catch, I don't know, 120 games, perhaps he can DH. He can fill in at first base. I know he plays some first base as well. He's way better than any catching hitter we have, which makes one of our two backup catchers expendable now. Maybe we can make a move. I'd like to see a switch hitter, maybe another outfielder. Um, a lot of Murphy, we were talking about Murphy, but the hangup was Nolan Gorman. A lot of teams were wanting Nolan Gorman, and the Cardinals have placed very high expectations on him. And I don't know. I would have been happy either way, but this way we don't have to give up a top prospect. We just give up a draft choice, a second rounder to the Cubs, and we get Wilson Contrares, which now that middle of that lineup, you probably have Goldie, Contrares, and Arenado right in the middle, and hopefully Jordan Walker, the young phenom coming. I hope he makes the team this year, and that's four really good bats, and we're hoping for O'Neill and Carlson and Gorman to pick it up. So we'll
is,
see. I think we're in a good spot.
is Walker a left-hander?
Let's see. I invested in a lot of his baseball cards. He is a right-hander. He is a right-hander. Matter of fact, since we're talking about him, I I bought like 15 cards of his. There he is, right there. Look at that. I know we don't open up cards till the end of the show, but just look at that stance right there.
What a guy.
Yeah, what a guy. Yeah. So he could come in.
If
Bat
batting
six.
stances mattered.
Yeah. Everybody's got their own unique one. Um, Wilson has played 7 years in the big leagues, and his average batting average is 256, which is about 60 points better than either the other two catchers we have. Uh, he strikes out about an average of 151 times and walks 62 over these 7 years, and he hits 26 home runs, which, man, I our catchers might hit 10 to 15, maybe. That's a big pickup, and he's a 3-time All-Star. I didn't see that last year. He got hit 24 times by pitches.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
does
Um,
he crowd the plate?
yeah, I it's not like a Rizzo where he's right on top of the
Oh yeah.
plate, but he does dive into the ball. And the book on him is you pitch him inside, and his average his first few years as a player in the majors was a little higher than it's been the last few. But now the book's really defined on him. You pound him inside, and you said he got hit 26 times,
24. Yeah,
24
last
times.
year.
I will I will say that the Brewers probably hit him 8 or 9 times.
Oh.
And I mean there's a you're gonna have heat with the Brewers when he plays the Brewers because they come in on him and they're not bashful about it. From my perspective as someone who's watched him very closely, now this is a guy who has been with the Cubs organization since he was 16 years old. So it's been a long time with the Cubs. He is a fiery guy. He is a leader. He is vocal. Um, he is like Yachty in that he just wants to win. He is a winner. Um, and he's got a very high baseball IQ. He's not the best pitch framer. He's not as bad as he was a few years ago, but that's probably going to go out the window anyway. So who cares? He can every now and then get a little lazy and get a few pass balls that are wild pitches that he maybe should have blocked or got with. Been watching Yachty the last 3 or 4 years. I've seen Yachty, he's had the same issues. So that's kind of become a wash. But man, he will take his walks and he has got thump in his bat. He will get your extra base hits. He will come up big and he will fight for your team.
I
Um,
tell you what, with the people like Arenado, Goldie, Contrares, and Wayno on the team, those are character guys. And I really think you have to have guys like that on your team. Keep them young guys, show up early, work hard, so them young guys know they can't slack either.
yeah,
And I'm very happy to have him. I was looking at some of his stats. He's hit over 20 home runs a year 4 times, and he's hit over 273 times. And oh my gosh, I'll be honest, if he hits 255, I'll be ecstatic. 20 home runs, 255, and plays a majority of the games at the catching spot. That's all and work with Herrera, because Herrera's a very young guy, and I think it'd just be great that he could learn from Wilson Contrares. So I think the Cardinals fans are going to fall in love with him, and it's good to have him. I hate that the Cubs lost him, but I'm glad he's over here, and I think we're one more hitter away, and we'll be pretty solid team.
Well, with the way the Cubs screwed him over, and they did screw him over, they did not seriously negotiate any kind of extension with him. They were very vocal. They were going to trade him last year at the trade deadline. He even told his teammates goodbye and got a big hand from the Wrigley faithful right at the trade deadline, because they thought this was going to be his last at bat. And they had a trade in place with the Astros. And Dusty Baker actually pulled the rug out from under it at the last minute, because Dusty didn't think that adding a catcher with 2 months was going to be it was going to upset with the good thing that they had with, as far as their catchers and how they work with their pitchers. He didn't want to go through, a new catcher with 2 months left in the season when they're going for a World Series, when they had enough talent to win the World Series as is. And so it was a situation where the trade deadline came and went, and this guy, who is very emotional, by the way, thought he was leaving, and had us crying and had us goodbyes. It was like, oh, psych, you're coming back. And that's, I don't think the Cubs meant to do that to him, but they did. And I dread seeing him. He's probably going to hit 350 against the Cubs, so we're gonna have some issues with this. So,
all right, that's worth it right there. That's 17.5 million right there. Hey, this week we had the another committee of players, journalists, historians, front office people vote on the Hall of Fame, and they had like 10 players to decide on. Still had to get 75%, and me and Vince would like to congratulate the crime dog, Fred McGriff, going into the Hall of Fame. Love Fred, classy guy. What a career. I actually think Fred, the reason I think he didn't get the votes he should have from the regular committee was steroids. I think when you hit 35 home runs and these other guys are hitting 50, 60, 70 home runs, 35 doesn't look like anything special.
yes.
Once you took them steroids out of the game, or trying to make an attempt, you realize Fred was top notch, winner everywhere he went, classy guy, a great ambassador of the game. And I don't know, what do you think about Fred? I love Fred.
Well, a few episodes ago, when we had players that we think should be in the Hall of Fame, I had him on there. I thought he would get in. I thought a few more would get in. But I really thought McGriff would get in, and I was kind of surprised he was the only one, but I'm very happy. And the couple years he spent with the Cubs, I think it was 2 years he spent with the Cubs, seeing him on an everyday basis. Yeah, very class individual. Wasn't a, much of a, I don't know, extrovert. He was serious about his work, and he was polite, but he wasn't doing all the commercials and doing all that stuff. He just just a blue collar player. And the one of the most unique swings in baseball, that helicopter thing when he would, that was pretty cool. So I'm very happy that you got it.
What team do you think you I love Fred, and what team do you think he'll go in with? I was going to get your idea before I tell you what I thought.
The Hall of Fame decides that. A player can request, but it's the Hall of Fame's decision. And I think since he had his most success with the Braves. That's probably what they're gonna, you know.
I would hope so. That's what I remember him as, that World Series they got when he was there. And um, that's a lot of players from those Atlanta Braves teams now going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
And there was the Ford Frick Award, a Cub announcer.
Pat Hughes, and forgive me because
No.
I did not get home until right about 6, and I saw that Pat Hughes won the Ford Frick Award, and I meant to talk about that. And by the time I got down here, literally, I'm scrambling. I usually type my notes out in front of him. This is why. That's what my handwriting looks like. And I forgot to put Pat Hughes on here. Pat Hughes won the Ford Frick Award, and
Oh,
Pat
okay.
Hughes
Oh, yes, that's
for a
the
long
Pat from
time.
Pat and Ron. Okay.
Funny guy, a great voice, and just a tremendous individual. And some of his banter with Ron Santo is just classic. And my dad bought this for me about 10 years ago, and I still listen to it every now and then. Brings back some great memories. But yeah, very deserving. He started with the Twins, and then he announced a few years with the Brewers, and I think he's been with the Cubs now for 27 years, still going strong. And he's called a World Series for the Cubs. I mean, who else has done that? But if you ever listen to a radio game, Pat Hughes just does a tremendous job. The way they do the Marquee Network now, they kind of, I don't know, they got like 55 different people doing commentating and announcing, and I never know who's going to be in the booth one day or that. Sometimes Pat Hughes is in the television for booth for the game. I don't know. If you ever get a chance to listen to him, tremendous individual, great voice, a lot of knowledge of the game, and he's just very deserving of the Ford Frick Award.
All right. Well, congratulations. That's great that a Cubby's going in. That's fantastic. So Fred McGriff and the announcer from the Cubs. Well, this week was a sad week. There's so few Hall of Famers, and it seems like a lot of times nobody goes in the Hall of Fame on a year. We might have 5, we might have 0. You just never know. But this week we lost a Hall of Famer, Gaylord Perry. He was 84 years old. I have a 1975 card of him right there. There he is with the Indians. There he is. And I already checked his hand. I don't see anything on his hand. Uh, he played 22 years in the big leagues, 314 wins and 265 losses, and struck out 3,534. That's phenomenal right there. His lifetime ERA was 3.11, and his innings. This is the thing that amazes me: 5,350 innings pitched over 22 years, and in 17 seasons he pitched over 200 innings, and 6 of those seasons he had over 300 innings. That is amazing. Nobody even comes close to that kind of durability these days. Played for a lot of teams. He played from 62 to 83, but from 62 to 71, he played with the San Francisco Giants, those great Giant teams with Juan Marichal and McCovey and Mays and all those guys. Quite a team back in those days. Played for the Indians, the Rangers, played for the Rangers twice, the Padres, the Braves, the Mariners, and he played just a little at the end of his career with the Kansas City Royals. The main thing, okay, first of all, I'll give you some of the good points out. 5 All-Star games, 2 Cy Youngs. He was 3 times he led baseball in wins. He pitched 1 no-hitter, and the Giants retired his number 36, and that's Gaylord Perry. And one of the things, when you say his name, the first thing people think of is the spitball. That's what he's known for. The spitball was outlawed in 1920. So he's playing in the 60s all the way through the 80s, and he did throw the spitter. They tried it. I mean, they would go out, they check him, and he only got ejected 1 time. And Harold Reynolds played behind him. A lot of people threw the spitter, but the problem was you couldn't control it. You didn't know quite where it was going to go. But Gaylord Perry had very good control over his spitball. He obviously the strikeouts, the wins, the innings pitched. And he was only ejected one time when they went out and checked him. Now, in today's baseball, with all the media and the cameras, if he was doing it very often, he would have got caught pretty quickly. But there's a famous video. I don't know if you've seen this, Vince, with Reggie Jackson. Have you seen that? Reggie Jackson strikes out. Reggie's on the Angels. Gaylord throws it's an obvious spitball. That thing just drops off. He swings and misses. Reggie's screaming and hollering. He goes into the bench and gets out one of those coolers and throws ice everywhere and is throwing water up in the air like that. And, everybody's laughing because he's just had it with him. But they could never find it. And Harold Reynolds said he kept it on a zipper because they would never check his zipper. So, he would always do the stuff like this, but it was down here is where he kept the Vaseline.
Yeah, he would take his finger behind the ear, armpit. He had a whole ritual, but it was the same ritual every time. But he never touched the place where the Vaseline it wasn't spit. Who's going to spit on their zipper? That's kind of gross. But anyway, did you know the game he got ejected for throwing the spitter? He took a polygraph test. And they asked him, did you throw a spitter when you got ejected? And he said no, and he passed. He swore that the day he got ejected, he didn't throw the spitter when they said, that's a spitball, you're out of the game. Unreal.
That is unreal. He wrote a book, Me and the Spitter. That was the name of his book even. He was from North Carolina, and he had a brother, Jim Perry, who
was a great pitcher too.
Yeah, he was a great pitcher too. Matter of fact, Vince, we ought to do a thing on brothers. There's been a lot. I looked it up today. I think there's 437 brothers that have played in the major leagues. And that's amazing. Just to get to the major leagues, you're defying odds. And then 2 brothers, or in the Molina's case, 3 brothers, or the Alous, 3 brothers. So that's kind of remarkable. Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Vincent, Dom. Yeah, going back. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But Jim and Gaylord won more games than any other brother combination. They won 529 victories in the big leagues between the 2 brothers. So anyway, I just wanted to pay my respect to Gaylord Perry, a great player. I have always loved him. He used to do the David Letterman show and stuff like that all the time. And I really liked him. So he will be missed.
I don't remember. I think it was Jim Perry. The Perry brothers were terrible hitters, and this is when there was no DH, so they hit. And someone once made a statement when the Perry brothers in the early 60s that there will be a man on the moon before Jim Perry hits a home run. And like the day after we did the moon landing, he hit a home run. It's kind of a cool story.
That is great story right there.
I do remember when he went to the Padres, he was quite older. He's in his mid-30s then. And he'd pitched for the Indians, and it looked like that, he was starting to slow down a bit. And then he went to the Padres and he won a Cy Young. Won his second Cy Young. He won his first with the Giants like a decade or so earlier, and then he bounced back and won another Cy Young. So.
Amazing. I got a few things I picked up this week. May I share? This is usually when we share stuff. I got a 8x10. This is from 1932. I'm very proud of this. Dizzy Dean, right there.
Wow,
that's pretty bad to the bone. On there, he says, wishes with for the year, pal, Dizzy Dean. And on the back, he wrote a little. They have a little form letter, and basically, it's about this is the only picture he ever had where his mouth's shut because Dizzy liked to talk all the time. And it's a little ad for grape nuts on here too. I hope you're enjoying grape nuts. And so it's sort of a little commercial for grape nuts as well. And it's got his name right there, Dizzy Dean, and there he is. But this is 1932. too. I just love the history of baseball. And back then, even the team pictures, everybody had their hair kind of uniform and
Oh
everything.
yeah.
I got this here. This is a 1958 scorecard from the Cardinals. 10 cents right there. 1958. They got a little Budweiser commercial on the back there. And what's so great about this is back then they used to type everything out to the day of the game. And on this day, it is let's see, home game number 57, 1958. We're playing the Pittsburgh Pirates. You can see the standings there. And in those years, there was only one division. So in this day, Milwaukee Brewers are actually 71-51. They're leading the division. You got the
That's the
Giant.
Milwaukee Braves at
Oh,
that
that's
time.
right. 58. It would have been
Yeah.
the Braves. The Brewers weren't around yet. I will say this, though. We're in fifth place. We're 58-62, but we're 2 games ahead of the Cubbies. In 1958, the Cardinals did lose this game 8-4 to the Pirates. But listen to this lineup. The Pirates had Bill Verdon leading off. Roberto Clemente was in the 2-hole, hitting 275. They had Bob Skinner in the cleanup spot, Bill Mazeroski, Dick Grote, and Friend was pitching that day. I can't think of his first name, but he was 16-13. And the Cardinals had Blasting Game leading off. Musial was batting third. He was only hitting 351. Come on, Stan, pick it up.
Yeah.
Kenny Boyer batting fourth. Wally Moon, who was rookie of the year, was batting there. And Kurt Flood was the 8th spot hitter. And he was hitting 267. And Vinegar Ben Mizell was the starting pitcher. He was 6-8 at the time. So is that pretty cool? 1958. It's in very good shape still.
It is.
Yeah, I was very proud of that. Now it said 10 cents on there. I won't say anything, but I paid more than 10 cents for that. And I'm very, very proud of that. I got Bush State. This is such a nerd thing to have, but I have AstroTurf from the second Bush Stadium. It's got the little football cardinal and the cardinal emblem on there. And it's got a thing about Bush Stadium right there. So that's Bush Stadium 2, AstroTurf. If I buy enough of these, I can make my own field.
When I was a kid, my uncle took me to a game, and it was one of the last games of the year, and they're playing the Expos. And I do remember there was maybe 5,000 fans there. One of the things that I remember so much about this game, I think it was 78 or 79. The Cardinals were terrible that year. And a couple things I remember. Number one, Roger Freed stole a base in that game, which was
Miracles can
amazing.
happen.
And the second thing is that there was a guy who was in the stands, and 3 foul balls went in this general area, and there were so few fans there. The same guy got 3 foul balls. He just run down a few and picked them up. So, but anyway, after the game, my uncle actually paid. Very nice thing that he did. He paid for us to go in the Cardinal Museum at the Old Bush Stadium.
Oh, yes.
And I got to hold Stan Musial's bat. I mean, there wasn't like no one else there. So, the tour guide was letting me do everything. And I do remember they had an AstroTurf room. So you could walk in and see what it was like to walk on AstroTurf. And I remember thinking, this is like walking on my grandparents' AstroTurf, because it was just my grandparents' AstroTurf. Anyway, back in the 70s, for those of you who don't know, people used to put AstroTurf on their porch for some reason. So there you go.
Nice, soft on the feet, I guess. I don't know. I got I got my Jordan Walker cards. I won't go through them all, but I got a little stack of them right there. I'm investing because this is going to be, I mean, some of them even they're kind of unique. Some of them.
Well, I like
right
that.
Yeah, I do too. It's got like a 70s and lettering there, he's just there he is. He came up as a third baseman, but because we got Arenado, he's moved to the outfield, and they said he looks fantastic, got a great arm. I mean, he grades high on every aspect of the game. We'll see. So far, he's hit everywhere he's went. I got 2 autographs. I got a 1972 Ted Simmons card autographed.
Awesome.
It's a factory.
A
And
Hall of
then
Famer Ted Simmons now.
Hall of Famer Ted Simmons. I love Ted Simmons. And my favorite player, Enos Slaughter. These are special set they put out. It's a Fleer. Put those out. So I got Enos running there with his autograph right there. And I like to do little memorabilia section. And if it's okay, I'll do that now and get it. Oh, I forgot one thing. I got Ozzie Smith used to have a restaurant up at Westport. And I got a book of matches, a couple books of matches from his restaurant.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's kind of nice. My wife used to take me in there for Father's Day or birthday, and Ozzy had memorabilia all over the walls and everything. It was a really good place. Well, what I'm going to cover in the little memorabilia corner, and Vince, I think you'll get a kick out of this. Back probably before the 80s, you only see the highlights, and that probably takes you up to about the 50s. Now, if you want to see any game past the 90s, they've got every single game on tape somewhere. So in the old days, they used to have to do records. They would do a record at the end of the year if it was a great year or a kind of memorable year. So I got a few albums, vinyl albums here I'd like to show off. This is the Cardinals, 1964. There we go.
Oh, that's
And
great shape.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, this is probably $10 item, but it goes over the 1964 year, which we went over, where the Cardinals came from way behind. The Phillies were running away with it, and the Cardinals made a trade for Lou Brock. We mentioned that before. I always have to bring that up, don't I?
Yeah.
And they came out from out of nowhere and caught the Phillies, caught fire, beat the Yankees in the World Series. And this is narrated by Harry Carey, the great Harry Carey, and Jack Buck. And there they are on the back, right there.
Nice.
So 1964. That's pretty cool. Now, this is baseball, the first 100 years. And as you can tell, it's 1976. You can see all the crazy colors and all the commercials, and even the scorecards and the pocket schedules had that kind of look to them back then. It goes over it's got Lou Gehrig's farewell speech. I'm the luckiest man in the world. The Babe Ruth one. The Giants win the pennant. The Giants win the pennant. All that is on here. And it's narrated by Kurt Gowdy and Jimmy Stewart, the actor Jimmy Stewart. Yeah. How about that? And it kind of goes through all the great things through the first 100 years right there. Here we go. 1982 celebration. Yeah, I can hear Cool in the Gang right now.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. McGee and Ozzy. And, for us Cardinal fans, there's John too. You can look through and see all the players on that team right there on the back. You got the White Rat. Let me find a way. You got McGee and Ozzy. You got them all on there. And it's narrated by Mike Shannon and Jack Buck, 82. That was the first year I ever experienced a World Series I can remember, 1982. I saved this the last album. I got a couple of little small 45s too. This is Stan the Man teaching kids how to hit. There we go. There he is, helping that youngster. Yeah, right there. And what's so great is it's got an insert in it. And Stan shows you stuff like there's the little insert that comes with it. I mean, it looks in great shape. Stan shows you how to bunt, how to take the ball to the opposite field. I think I'm going to have this copied and sent to the Cardinals so we can learn how to hit against the shift and everything. This will be Matt Carpenter's birthday present right here.
By the way, what is a bunt? You said bunt. What's a bunt?
We had somebody on the Cardinals bunted last year. I remember I think it was Donovan. I think bunted and got a hit. He got a hit with it. So anyway, this even shows you grips, Stan's grips and everything on the bat. And this is narrated by Joe Garagiola. Remember the great Joe Garagiola? Yeah. He was on the Today Show, was a Cardinal catcher, grew up on the Hill with Yogi Berra.
Yep.
Then a lot of you young people won't remember these, but back when there was records, there were 45s. They were the small ones. They spun at a slower, a faster speed than the 33s. And the first one I have here is Kenny Boyer. It's it's in the sleeve here. It tells you all the statistics and everything. And Jack Buck pretty much it's his call by call, his play by play of
Yeah.
Kenny Boyer's career. This is pretty darn cool. I didn't even know this existed. And I ran into one of my school teachers when I found it, and he said, "Oh, I got that one too." And this one's narrated by Jack Buck too, and it's pretty much just Lou Brock breaking all those big records. It's 3010,
Oh, wow.
it's stolen base. Vince, do you remember they used to have records on the back of cereal boxes,
Cereal boxes, yes.
and you'd cut them out? It was the Archies, all sugar, and all that. And on the back, it shows you his statistics and everything.
Grandpa Pigeon's awesome.
Grandpa at Kroger, who's on there too? Ted Drews down there at the bottom.
Still
Yeah.
serving the ice cream, yeah.
Still serving the ice cream.
When I was a kid, Bad Magazine put out one of those little paper records. So,
I bet that was wild.
as you can see, I've spent a lot of time reading Mad magazines. I used to tell people, my problem growing up is I was the kid who would read the Bible in Mad magazine, and that just completely screwed me up. So
yeah, that balances everything right there.
Yeah, so
so that's it for the records. I just wanted to share that with everybody and just let you know there is a whole bunch of albums out there. And the one I want is Joe West, the guy who umpired more games than anybody, had a country music career. And I'd love to get that Joe West album. If it's out there, let me know. I'll buy it from somebody.
somewhere in this house, I have a Bronson Arroyo album.
Oh,
It's a CD. He does covers of like Slide from the Goo Goo Dolls and stuff like that.
I'll be darned.
It's terrible.
Oh,
I picked it up. I picked it up as on a whim. I was at one of the dollar stores. I don't think it was Dollar Tree. There used to be a lot of different dollar stores, and I saw Bronson Arroyo, and I thought, for $1, I'm going to support this man's music career. I took it home and I played it once. I thought, much better pitcher than he was a singer. So. JJ, speaking a couple things that happened, we've touched on them. The passing of Gaylord Perry, we talked about, the spitball. Also, one of the things that was interesting about the contemporary committee with the Hall of Fame is the Clemens, the Bonds, the Palmeros, the McGuires, they didn't get in. And so we kind of talked a little bit about, why don't we just kind of have an open discussion about cheating in the game, because some cheating is acceptable. Some is, that's not right. And then there's others like, okay, you're out of baseball, or, you're going to be banned or something like that. Sign stealing has been around forever. A lot of people don't know this, but there was a pitcher in the 19th century, and I do believe he's a Hall of Famer. His name was Pud Galvin.
I remember that name.
He injected monkey semen into his body, thinking that would give him strength. I don't know if it worked. Probably ate a lot more bananas, but so that even like enhancement that we think of as a modern day thing for the athlete, even that was in the infancy of baseball. Baseball, up until I think the 90s, maybe a little bit later, I don't remember when, they used to have amphetamines readily available for the players that were called greenies.
Mm-hmm.
And when I mean readily available, I wouldn't mean they'd have to go to the team doctor and get a prescription. I mean, they were just around. You talk about players who used to play 158, 159, 160, or some played 162. A lot of them attribute that to, we had the amphetamines, we had the greenies. You were tired, you got there, you were tired. You had a day game after a night game, you popped a couple greenies and you went out and you played. That's been banned. And if you'll notice, since greenies have been banned, you don't see people that play those kind of games. I remember one year with Kansas City, I think Darryl Porter, the catcher, caught well over 150 games. And I know the Cubs had an all-star catcher, Randy Hundley. A lot of people who are younger know his son Todd Hundley had a pretty decent major league career, once hit like 40 home runs. Randy Hundley used to catch over 150 games a year. A lot of that was attributed to these greenies, these amphetamines, and nobody thought twice about them. They give you energy. It's like an energy drink to them, you know. Now we know that amphetamines are probably not the best thing to take on a daily basis.
Right.
And you brought this up earlier, before we started recording, that people fudging on their age, and there's been that baseball. So let's kind of talk about mild cheating and kind of, progress that, because I see Gaylord Perry cheated.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot put substances on the ball. Wink, wink. And he did, and made a career out of it and went to the Hall of Fame. There are people who believe he should not be in the Hall of Fame because he got in the Hall of Fame on the spitball. But the spitball has been around, even though they banned it in 1920, and the last person to legally throw a spitball, Burley Grinds, 1934, because if you were throwing a spitball at the time they banned it, and that was your career, they grandfathered you. You could go ahead and play out your career, but so he threw the last legal spitball in 1934, I believe it was. What do you think about the spitball? Should that be something that should be so egregious that should keep a player out of the Hall of Fame? People who've been caught with cork bats, kind of what's your feeling on those things?
I put them in two categories. One is unfair advantage, and the other is gamemanship. Because I did a lot of research on this. With the baseball, you had the spitball, and it was outlawed. I think a lot of the other teams didn't go out and protest it as much because they had guys doing the same thing. There was a thing called the shine ball. They take the ball and they'd rub it on their legs and kind of get the threads torn, or the catcher would get the ball and do it on the shin guards. And what it would do is, if you had a knuckleball or a off-speed pitch, it would make it have more action. And so just the way the mud. Now, if you notice, this was years ago. Now they throw a ball out. If it touches the dirt, they throw the ball out. Back then, they get them balls, unless they were fouled or hit out of the ballpark, are just totally destroyed. They kept them in the ball game. I think
Yeah.
that kind of changed things right there too. Then,
Let me interject.
oh, go ahead. Sure.
The ball used to be very dark by the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And what shifted that into where we need to get the dirty balls, the dark ones out of the game was, I think it was about 1920 when Cleveland shortstop Ray Chapman was hit in the head and died a few days later. And the pitcher, gosh, I just read a book like 2 years ago on this, and I don't remember the pitcher's name right now, but he was a very successful pitcher. Did not show much remorse about the whole situation. But their feeling was, without lights in the stadium at the time, when games would get later in the afternoon and it would get darker and the ball would get darker, from all the eyewitnesses that were there, Chapman didn't see the ball. He didn't flinch or anything. There's no helmet. It just hit him in the head. And a few days later, he was dead. So they started at that time saying, okay, we got to get the dirty balls out. And that started the trend of, if a ball gets dirty, throw it out of the game. Now it's a situation where if the ball is fouled, just a foul tip, is thrown out of the game. Anytime it touches the dirt, it's out of the game. So
yes, and
proceed.
The hitters would see like shoe polish on it, and they could tell how the ball was spinning, the spin rate, what kind of pitch it was, just by having like a little something on there they could pick up. So they were seeing that as well too. But then just recently they had that grip. They had spider tack, things they could grip the ball. And basically what happened was they said the hitters preferred them using that because these guys throw 100 miles an hour now, and at least they'd have more control over the pitches. But what was happening was nobody was hitting. Batting averages were going down. We were having like 3-1 games, 2-1 games offense was down around the league, the pitchers were making more money because they were dominating, and the hitters, their contracts weren't going up as the pitchers were. So they've pretty much taken that out of the game too. And I understand, and a lot of the pitchers that were used that a lot. I remember Mike Schilt was one of the guys that brought that to the attention because Gallegos had suntan lotion or something on his bill of
Yeah.
his hat, and he got thrown out of the game right at the beginning of the game. And I really think no one really brought it up because both teams were doing it, and the pitchers just, they could do a little more, a little more, a little more, and they just kept, it got where they had it on their arm, they had it everywhere. So now that's out of the game too. So I just put it in two categories: unfair advantage and gamemanship. And I do think the spitball, I know other people were using it. I don't think he pitched every time with it. I think he created the illusion like it might be coming, and the batters didn't know. He used it for his advantage.
Yeah.
Uh, I went over stats and everything, and I just think he was a great pitcher. Um, Today, I don't think he could get away with it with the cameras and everything.
Yeah.
Do you remember Kenny Rogers in the 06 World Series had
Yes.
that pine tar or something right here on his hand?
Yeah.
And he won. He dominated us that game.
The only game the Tigers won, and LaRussa called him out, and by then he'd washed his hand, and it apparently it didn't matter because he still pitched a great game. Um, yeah, I see. I I don't. It's fun to look at baseball as one big homogenous thing, but there are different eras in baseball. And in the era where um, you had a lot of people putting substances on the ball, it wasn't looked at so much as cheating, it was looked at as gamesmanship. Don Sutton got thrown out of a game in Busch Stadium in the 70s for scuffing the ball. And what scuffing the ball is you put a little razor blade or something in your glove, or one of the little deals where the laces go through. I know they have a name, but I don't remember. You scuff the ball, and it makes your breaking ball uh, have more bite to it. It's like putting extra laces on the ball. And I remember in the 80s when Joe Niekro was pitching for the Twins, he got thrown out of a game for having an emery board in his pocket, which I thought was ridiculous. The guy's a knuckleball pitcher. Of course, he's going to have an emery board in his pocket. That's what they do. They keep their nails at a perfect length. And it's not like he was sitting on the mound taking out an emery board and scuffing up the ball, but he still got thrown out of the game for it. So I kind of look at that as something that is cheating. But yeah, gamesmanship. Should Gaylord Perry be in the Hall of Fame? In the era where he played, that was kind of accepted. If you could get away with it, it was okay. You know, it's kind of like the corked bat thing. There are players that are in the Hall of Fame who I'm sure use corked bats. I can't think of any offhand, but I know that I remember in my lifetime, Greg Nettles once fouled the ball off, and a bunch of Super Balls came out of his bat in the 70s.
Howard
Albert
Johnson. Howard Johnson was one of those.
Johnson, Albert Bell, he got caught. Sosa got caught. Cork bats have been around for a long time, and it's not the cork. The cork doesn't really do anything. What it is you've got the bat a little lighter. You can whip it through the strike zone faster, and you can hit the ball harder. But there is a risk in that the bat is compromised because you got this shaft bored into it, and it could shatter, and that happens. So I put that kind of stuff. Excuse me. I put that kind of stuff into the gamesmanship category, and that may make me a hypocrite when we get to some of the more egregious stuff, but that's just the way I see it. I see it as sign stealing. If you got a guy on your bench who can watch for 2 innings the signs of the third base coach or the first base coach, or what the infielders are doing, and within a couple innings, they can say, got the signs, and you start telling people, this is what's going on, this is what's going on, this is what's going on. That's baseball.
That is baseball.
Now, when you're filming it and you're banging on trash cans, that's taking it too far. And what that has done, that's evolved where sign stealing is going to go the way of the dinosaur because we've already got the pitchers and the catchers using the electronic signal, so you can't steal the signs anymore. Now, if a pitcher's tipping his pitches, much like Wheeler did in the World Series, it's perfectly fine to tell him, hey, he's doing this. And so you know a fastball's coming or a curveball's coming or whatever. That's the pitcher's fault for how the hell am I tipping my pitches? And it's funny when you hear someone, a pitcher that's being interviewed about, I was tipping my pitches. How'd that happen? I don't know. I thought I was doing the same thing with every pitch. Apparently I wasn't. And it's kind of a bad habit they fall into with a particular pitch.
And I think it's up to your pitching coach and your bench to pick that up too. They should be watching you. I've noticed sometimes when people throwing off speed, you can see that they grip it a little different. You can tell they're in there maybe gripping it, and you can kind of tell. Bryce Harper went up to the next batter, said something, and the guy hit the home run off a Wheeler. I just thought that was great. I think Wainwright's really good at picking up on things as well. You know your opponent. If he gets behind in the count and he's not, his off speed isn't working, more than likely he's going to throw a fastball, and you set on that fastball. And I just, like you said, I think this is part of the game. But if you breaking the rules, eventually in the court of public opinion, it kind of ruins your name,
Yeah.
It follows you because Gaylord Perry, spitball, A-Rod, all the things that he did in the game and everything. So I'm with you though. Yeah. Hitting, everything. I know I was looking up I didn't know if you wanted to go there yet, but I have some really unusual rule breaking that went on, and baseball has to police itself. And suspensions, I know with steroids now, I think the first time you get caught with a list of things that you cannot take, you get a half season, you're suspended.
Yeah.
Tatis is suspended right now, and that's probably going to follow him around the rest of his career. I got a couple for you. The Seattle Mariners made the pitching, the batter's box bigger. They were making the batter's box bigger and getting all the way back in the end of the batter's box to combat the fast pitchers. So if they were facing a real fast pitcher, they increased the length of the batter's box. And guess who caught him? Billy Martin. I think one of the all-time great managers. Was he crazy? Yes. He was paranoid as all heck. But that guy, the George Brett, too much pine tar. There's rules for a reason. And Billy Martin goes, if he gets a home run here, I'm coming out and protesting that. And sure enough, he got thrown out. Billy Martin knew the rules. He knew what people were doing. And the Minnesota Twins, for years, they were suspected, I don't think they were ever caught, of opening up doors so the wind would blow out at their the Metrodome. And this goes on for quite a few years, 82 to 2009. I don't think anybody could prove that, but that's a wild one right there too.
There was a catcher for the Astros. He also played for the Cubs a bit, Cliff Johnson, big power hitting catcher. And he said, I
love Cliff
don't know if he
Johnson.
was in jest or not, but he said when he was with the Astros, when Joe Negro would pitch, they would turn the air conditioner down just a little bit because it made his knuckleball flutter more.
Hey, well, I never knew that. I never knew that. Now, the Seattle Mariners, I think the ground crew guy got suspended and he lost some money, and I think the team got warned. And I like that. Let's see. I'm trying to look at some of these other ones here too. Well, Eddie Goodell. Eddie Goodell was a midget or a small person, whatever the proper words are this year. He was so small, the strike zone was so little that nobody could hit it. And he went to first, got a pinch runner in there for him, but the commissioner wouldn't let him play anymore because nobody could pitch to the guy. Bill Veeck, the great Bill Veeck, owner of the White Sox. That was one of his gimmicks right there.
Bill Veeck planted the ivy at Wrigley.
I'll be
That was his
darned.
idea.
What a great uh, person in baseball lore right there. Teams forever have if you're facing a fast team, you water down the infield more.
Yeah.
Ricky Henderson, when he was stealing all those bases, they watered down the infield. Now, I don't think that's cheating because it's same for both teams. Both teams will be slower because of basically it's to the point of mud. Uh, if you were facing a team, if your team could bunt, like you said, what's a bunt? They would let the grass grow higher. You know, I heard the Indians got in trouble one time because they would raise the pitching mound on days Bob Feller pitched. They got caught raising the mound. See, that's unfair. But then the other pitchers pitching off that mound too. But they're sort of manipulating it where their ace is going on those days. But they got caught and they couldn't do that anymore.
Now let's talk a little bit about greenies real quick.
Sure.
Amphetamines. The modern day equivalent is the energy drink. And we know that energy drinks are not the best thing for you, but I still drink them. But they're not the best thing for you. But you do get an energy boost from that. What do you think about that? Is that okay?
I think everybody in the league was doing it and also drinking a lot of coffee and smoking cigarettes. Back in them days, you'd see guys smoking cigarettes, getting a little excited over there. No, I think if it was known around the league, they weren't hiding anything. All the teams were doing it. You know, today I'm sure people are drinking energy drinks too. You know, the doctors are subscribing it, so I don't have a problem with it if everybody's doing it. You know.
Okay. Before we get to the big stuff, the stuff that we know is, this is going to completely affect the outcomes of games and completely affect statistics and stuff like that. I'm talking about gambling and steroids. We'll get to those at the end. You brought up this before we started recording. You brought up age, players who were older than what they said they were. Did you do any digging on that? What'd you find out?
I found out like even far back as Pee Wee Reese and some of those guys, they said they were a year or two younger. That way, wow, look at this kid. Look how good he is already. Agents, the league would, because when you're coming up for a contract, if they think you're 2 years younger, for instance, Contrares, if we thought he was 28 years old, we might give him a 7-year deal
Yeah.
instead of a 5-year deal. And that means a lot. You can't get away with that these days. But back then in World War II years, you could. A lot of people don't think Albert Pujols is his age. So if he is really 45, 46, he had a pretty good year last year.
He's a Tom Brady.
When he came up with Kansas City, a lot of the other kids, when he was in high school, a lot of the other parents thought, there's no way this guy is a high school kid. He had a receding hairline. He was a lot bigger than everybody else. I honestly, I don't know how old he is, but he had a great career. Did it help him get signed or drafted higher? Not really, because he didn't go until like the 13th round.
Yeah.
But if you think a guy's younger, you'll sign him for more years. They can make more money.
With the uniform over your shoulder, Fernando Valenzuela.
Yeah.
I do remember when he came out of the gate, the hottest thing, and he was 19 at the time, and he was from Mexico, and he had a very ruddy look. He always looked like he was 48, 49. They had to, I guess they didn't have to, but they produced a copy of his birth certificate from Mexico to verify that he was that age. And I think I brought this up that David Green, when he played for the Cardinals, and then they eventually traded him to the Giants. Did they get that trade? Was that the Jack Clark trade? I don't remember. But anyway, when they traded him to the Giants, it came out that he was like 6 years older than what anybody thought he was. And Green was from Nicaragua, and at that time Nicaragua was going through a civil war. and getting documents was just kind of impossible. So we're still not sure how old David Green was. But chances are he was probably older than what Major League Baseball thought he was. And just about, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I don't quite remember, in the Little League World Series, there was this pitcher, Danny Almonte, just dominated the kids, and everybody, this guy's a phenom at 14. And then it came out that he was actually 16 years old, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but you remember a 14-year-old is like a freshman and a 16-year-old is like a junior. I remember whenever I was a freshman in high school, the sophomores, juniors, and seniors seemed like giants to me because
Yes.
physically they were just bigger. And I mean, this was a big kid who threw hard and dominated. When they found out, oh, well, he's 16, he should be dominating everybody. And I think he played a little minor league baseball, but
That was it.
because he wasn't 14 years old with this talent, he was 16 years old with this talent. He kind of was with the pack, you know. So that kind of stuff has went on at different levels of organized baseball, probably for a long time.
Rene Arocha, we had a Cuban pitcher, Rene Arocha, and he looked haggard, but he had to get up and what's the word when you leave Cuba? You defected.
Yeah.
He came over here, and it turns out he was like in his mid to late 30s. He had 2 years with us. I really liked him. He had a great career in Cuba, but he came over to the United States, but we weren't quite sure how old he was. And he over in Cuba, great pitcher, but over here he was just okay. He did okay over here.
Yeah, and you touched on it. It's a money thing when it's, if I'm an executive and I sign a player that I think is 28 years old, Carlos Correa is 28. I signed Carlos Correa, and I'm going to sign him for 10 years, $300 million, let's say 30 million a year. And by year 5 of that contract, when he should only be 33, he starts really falling off the table, and I find out he's 38. That's a breach of contract right there. I mean, that's a legal thing you can get into where you can say, hey, you now owe me money. You need to pay me back because you didn't sign this in good faith. Um, it can really get sticky. And I think that's one of the reasons, probably the main reason why scouts, agents, they're probably telling their players, man, you know, especially the international players, we need to know and verify, probably through birth certificate, what your age is.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're lying about it in today's world, you're going to get found out, and then you're going to be in a lot of deep legal issues. So, now let's talk about gambling. And of
Okay.
course, we're going to have to talk about Pete Rose and the Black Sox scandal. What are your feelings about gambling in general, players gambling in general, versus players who are gambling on baseball?
Well, gambling is part of life, and I know a lot of them have fantasy leagues. I know Tommy Pham went over and slapped somebody last year because something about a guy on the
Tommy,
DL.
yeah.
Yeah, what the heck?
Doc
So,
Peterson, when he was with the Cubs. Yes.
man, that's crazy time. And then he got suspended for something that happened over a fantasy football team. That's crazy talk. And I think Mike
Don't
Trout
mess
was
with
the
Tommy Pham.
yeah,
He's,
no, I know he was with us, and
oh
he was
yeah.
kind of a rough guy. He got wild. Uh, yeah, but they've had since the 1919 White Sox scandal, they've had in every locker room, every hallway you go in there. You cannot bet on baseball. Do not bet on baseball because once you get gamblers in there, they own you. They can manipulate you. It's like selling secrets to the Russians. Once you do that, they got you, and they can make you do all kinds of things. For making money off the game, and the integrity of the game. I think that's so specific because we believe that these guys are out there giving their best effort, and there's an actual game going on. Soon as it gets to be like WWF or baseball or boxing, why even follow it anymore? You know,
Yeah.
there's still people who believe it's fake. I know the year the Red Sox won it after the marathon bombing.
Yeah.
They said, "Oh, look at that! Of course they won it. Boston strong. They look what they went through, and now, of course, they're going to win the World Series." And I don't believe that at all. But there are people who any little thing they start doubting, is this for real? You know, there's just too much involvement. So anything that makes the fans believe that the game is not legit, you got to get rid of it. And after the 1919 incident, where the players threw the World Series, uh, they got a commissioner, Judge Mountain Landis, who didn't play around. He threw those guys out and forever. It's never to be seen again. And you know, Bud Selig was a different kind of commissioner. He was one of the guys. But yeah,
Oh, dude.
I didn't see anything. Let's make the All-Star game count.
Yeah,
So
it's tied. It's an all-star game. We're out of pitchers. I don't know.
right. So that's my feeling on gambling. You cannot, and you know, we can talk about Pete Rose, and even the votes. Half his teammates, the Morgan and Bench, they disagree on it. The Hall of Famers, most of them don't agree on it. So, and we're just the fans, and half of us are one way, and half is another way. Oh, he served his time, that kind of thing. But like, even if you gambled and they've got a bunch of players, you could make that pitcher throw the ball right down the middle, and that guy gets a hit or has a better chance of getting a hit, you know. And if the over/under is 3 runs, just have the pitcher throw some, you know, real nice pitches down the middle, and they'll make their money. So I'm against betting on baseball.
Yeah, in basketball, there's been a couple of episodes in the history of college basketball where there's been point shaving, and that's, you know, a gambler telling a player, you're not telling them to throw the game. Let's say the player averages 16 points a game. Say you need to get 12 points today, and I'll pay you $5,000. You know, for a college student, that's a lot of money. You know,
Right.
um, one of and that kind of thing can work in baseball, and it probably has worked in baseball. You know, telling a player, hey, um, you're only going to get one hit today. If you get in your first at bat, get a home run, that's fine, but I don't want to see any more hits, and here's your money. I think the average the base salary for baseball is about $500 million now.
You're right.
I like that high salary because you're making enough money. You don't have to go down there for financial reasons. And that's what happened with the 1919 Black Sox or White Sox, now known as the Black Sox, is that Charles Comiskey, the owner, paid them so poorly, and they were a great team, that they needed the money. Number one, I'm not making a very good living because most baseball players had to work in the off season, but there was also the element of we're going to stick it to the owner here, you know, because he's being a jerk to us. And you know, as far as Pete Rose goes, I don't think he should be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. But I get a little agitated when people say Pete Rose needs to be in the Hall of Fame because he's got the most hits. Guess what? His records are in the Hall of Fame.
They're in
No
there.
one's saying they don't exist. He's just not enshrined. But yeah, his records, his hits, his World Series championships, they're all in the Hall of Fame. If you want to know about the history of Pete Rose, it's all in the Hall of Fame.
44 game hitting streak.
Yeah,
That bat and shoes, everything in there.
Yeah, you're just not going to
a plaque. He just don't have a plaque.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there was two things in there when they let him out. Bart Giamatti suspended him, you know, life suspension. He could have showed remorse and got back in, but he was going to fight it. And that's just the way Pete Rose was. And that Dowd report, if you had one occurrence of betting on baseball, you were out. And they had over 74 occurrences. And he usually bet a half an hour before game time. And if you're betting on even if you're betting on your own team, you can manipulate the schedule. You put all the starters in there, use your top relievers to go win that game, and it could actually hurt you for 2 or 3 games afterwards. And I just think he got so far in debt and are just wrapped up in it. And then I think Selig was going to let him back in. Then he wrote a book about his book was In Prison Without Bars. And he was bad mouthing the league there. And they were like, nah.
Get
So
out of here.
he doesn't need to be in charge of a team. To get his autograph, it's sad. It's like $7 to get Pete Rose autograph. And I feel bad. I don't feel bad for the guy. He's kind of like a punchline in a joke now. And it's sad because I do think when he was young and he played with everything he had, and then this happened. So it's a cautionary tale. Don't get involved, or you could lose everything.
Now the big one, that's more contemporary than anything else, the human growth hormone, steroids, stuff of that nature. This is where I fall on that. And I think I may have talked about this, you can kind of see in a player when their body changes. Mark McGwire was a skinny drink of water, and I truly believe he was on his way out of the league when he started doing the steroids, because he got down to about a 210 hitter with like 22 home runs. He wasn't a monster. Nobody was afraid to pitch to him. Suddenly he shows up at spring training all hulked up, and he's hitting 50 dingers. And then the Cardinals got him and he's hitting 70 dingers. And then when you look at them after their career, they're shrunk back down again. Like I was talking about with Barry Bonds the other day. If you were a Hall of Famer, if you had a Hall of Fame career before the whatever, the human growth hormone, the steroid stuff kicked in, I don't have a problem putting those people in the Hall of Fame. I don't have a problem putting Bonds in the Hall of Fame because of that. I don't like Barry Bonds. He's a jerk. But he was a Hall of Fame player before his body changed. Roger Clemens was a Hall of Fame pitcher before his body changed. Then there are other pitchers, other players that were not going. Sosa, number one, Palmeiro, these were not Hall of Fame players. And then suddenly they got these inflated numbers, because of the inflation. And what I didn't like was that it destroyed the integrity of the game. A home run used to be a special thing. When you think about a home run, it should be the most boring thing. There's no action. The ball goes over the fence. The outfielder walks around. The pitcher walks around. The guy trots around the bases, touches home. There's not the excitement that there is with a triple from an action point of view. We're just excited because the ball went over the fence and there's no defense against it. But when you kind of break it down, they're kind of boring. It used to be a special thing to hit a home run. For Mike Schmidt to hit a home run, he could do it because he was special. But you didn't see guys hitting home runs like, I don't know, Mark Bellinger, And then suddenly players are hitting home runs that shouldn't be hitting home runs. And they're hitting 20, 25, 30 home runs. And then you have players who are good hitters who suddenly are going to be hitting 40, 45, 50 home runs, like Juan Gonzalez, Jose Canseco,
Brady Anderson,
stuff like that. So my problem with human growth hormones is that with steroids is that it made the game unfair, and it whittled away at the integrity of the game, and it changed it. And I didn't like the direction it was going. I admit I was caught up in the home run chase. I was too naive to realize that, hey, these guys are artificially enhanced. They're like the porn stars. They're artificially enhanced, to use a Patrick Grandmeyer joke. So that's where I fall on it. Where do you fall?
Well, yeah. And look at all the records. Those guys in the 90s, a lot of them are way up on the category of all-time home run hitters. They were getting paid the biggest contracts. And it hurt guys. I don't know if we said this while we've been on the air, but people like Crime Dog. The guy was a 35 home run hitter. And it was like, oh, look at that guy. He only hits 35. Look at these guys, 70, 60, 50s, and then the high 40s. And Crime Dog I don't think there's ever been a sniff of anyone mentioning that he did any kind of thing like that. He looked like the same player. He was a good player. These guys were making all the big money. Who knows what teams lost games because of these guys? And then, you know, so they benefited all across the board, and now they're crying because they don't get in the Hall of Fame. And I could understand it. I know Bob Feller was very anti the steroid guys. Johnny Bench, a lot of the Hall of Famers are even anti that. So this is going all the way down the line, and I think that spoke volumes when that special committee got together, and Bonds and Clemens and Palmero, they didn't even get 4 votes on that thing, and I think that they were less than 4. They had the people who had the votes, and then everybody else was less than 4, and those you didn't see who voted for them. So they didn't even get 4 votes on that committee. So I don't know in their lifetimes if they're ever going to get in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I know Sandberg is on that committee, and Sandberg is, when he was enshrined in the Hall of Fame, that's part of his speech. You know, he's like, all natural. I did this all natural.
Yes, he did. And he was a
And
great player.
you think about this. This is kind of going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I'm going to go there anyway. Can you imagine if Maddox pitched, because he pitched in the steroid era, if these guys were playing clean, my goodness. I mean,
Top 10. He top 10 pitcher of all time right there. He is anyway, I think.
yeah, this guy threw 90 miles an hour, um, and it was just so crafty.
You know, one thing about steroids too is if you were a major leaguer and these guys are doing steroids and you know it, because I think inside they all talk. The minor league players to get to the major leagues now they got to do steroids to get to the
Yes,
majors. The high school kids were starting to do it. People, a lot of them were having heart disease. Kim Caminetti died at a very young age. They never said steroid, but I think it was steroid related. A lot of high school kids, college kids. So it's starting to trickle down, and they had to do something about it and stop it because the side effects from it is pretty deadly. So I remember the Mark McGwire times. I enjoyed him so. I think he's on the red jacket. The Cardinals honor him. He had some. I mean that it was like Mark McGwire and the Cardinals because we weren't very good back then. But it was fun seeing him and Sosa interact. You know, is our steroid guy versus your steroid guy. But I'm glad they're doing everything they can. And if you get caught, it's just not even worth it, you know, to tease. And he said it was for ringworm. Oh, come on, man. You're making that kind of
everybody's
money.
got
You
an
should know what you're
excuse.
putting in your body. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Would I want to tease on my team? Yes, but don't do steroids.
yeah, yeah. All right. Well, I think we've about exhausted this subject and exhausted our time. So let's open up baseball cards. What you doing?
I love tops. I'm old school. I love my tops. I got the 92 tops. I found a pack of them. Old wax pack right there. Let's get these bad boys going here. Oh, they turned them towards each other. So let me find the spot. All right. What we got here? Oh, Pedro's big brother, Ramon Martinez, the Dodgers.
Ah, yes.
Remember, I love Ramon Martinez. I would try to go to a game if he was pitching in St. Louis. Oh yeah, Lou Piniella, sweet Lou. He's managing the Reds right there. I remember him and Rob Dibble getting into it in the locker room. That was fun stuff. Sparky Anderson.
Sparky.
Oh, I love Sparky, the coach of the Big Red Machine and the Tigers. Yeah. Let's see who else we got here. Oh, here you go, Vince. This is for you. 87 MVP Andre Dawson, the Hawk.
Andre. There you go.
Yes. Ozzy finished second that year for the MVP, but Andre was incredible that year. Oh, Mariano Duncan from the Reds.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if he was on that Reds team in 90 that won the World Series with Sabo. Pat Tabler of the Blue Jays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, remember that guy? Nice career.
Former Cub.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Jeff Reardon.
Ah,
And he's a Red Sox there. I believe he was a Minnesota Twin.
Mets, Twins, Red
Yeah.
Sox. Yeah, he closed for a few teams.
Oh, nice pitcher. Had a nice career. Kevin Apier, Kansas City
Ah,
Royals right there.
I always love that name. I always see someone saying, "I am apier than you," and with a banana or something.
Old Mike Jackson. Yeah, Seattle. That's back when they just had the S for their hat. That's my least favorite Seattle Mariner hat. But Mike Jackson. And there's a rookie one here, and I'm seeing if there's any big rookies on there. No, no rookies. Back then in '92, they would put 4 rookies on a card, and every once in a while, I think Chipper Jones might have been had one of these rookie cards like that, if I'm not mistaken. And Russ Swan of the Mariners.
Hmm.
Yeah, Russ Swan right there. I think the Mariners are building the team. They've made some moves.
Yeah,
I'm excited for them. I lived up there in the Navy, and that's a good sports city right there. So I hope they continue to grow and get better and better. That's it for me on my cards.
I am opening up 1990 Fleer.
Oh, okay.
All
Back in the
right.
90s, the time machine.
Oh, I got some stickers, and am I not lucky? But one of them is the Cubs.
The Cubbies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Cub sticker. Uh, oh, not only was he a decent second baseman for the Pirates and the Angels, but a great singer, Johnny Ray.
Johnny Ray. He had a nice
Uh,
career.
good catcher, Ernie Witt,
Ernie
played
Witt.
for the Jays. Uh, former pitcher, Todd Burns. Did he play with the Cardinals a bit?
Yes.
Yeah.
One year when Joe Torre was here, we thought we had a shot at the pennant. And Augie was gone and their kids got us Juan Augusto and Todd Burns. And man, they were just shelling us after that.
This guy had a pretty long career and pitched into his 40s and kind of got a little bit better towards the end of his career. Dennis Cook.
Oh, yeah, I kind of remember him.
Um, here's a guy, Frank Wills, and that's all I can say. Here's a guy.
Yeah. I like the jersey.
Yeah. And this is the most unfortunate name for a pitcher, Bob Walk, but he did have a decent career.
Bob Walk. Yeah. Phillies. He played for the Phillies too.
He had his name legally changed to Bob based on balls. Oh, one of my favorite twins of all time. Can I buy a vowel? Kent Herbeck.
Kent Herbeck. Yeah. Beat us in the '87 World Series.
Oh, ooh, 1990 Fleer All-Star Team, Mr. Joe McGrain.
Joe. Yeah. He does some announcing now.
Checklist.
Checklist.
Okay, we have Benny DiStefano.
I remember him.
I don't.
I sort of remember him. Was that Pirates right there?
Yes, with the
Pirates.
Pirates.
Okay. Okay. I sort of remember him.
And here's your favorite hat, Dennis Powell, sporting the Seattle Mariner hat.
Yeah, that's a weak hat, Seattle.
Huh. Here's a guy who lives right down the road from me in DeSoto, Missouri, Jose Oquendo.
Jose, yes. I hear he built the high school field for the team when his
Yeah.
kids played there.
Oh, and here's a blast from the past. Let me get this. Decent career with the Red Sox, Jody Reed.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Uh, pitcher, Mike Stanton,
Okay. Yeah.
and this guy, opening day in I think 84, 83 or 84, had a couple of home runs with the Reds, and everybody thought, oh, this guy's going to be a great outfielder. He turned out to be just kind of a fourth outfielder for his career, but I always liked Gary Reedus.
Yes. Yeah. Everything I read about him was always very positive. Good guy. Man, the baseball, that's just it. You open up the packs, great memories. And some of these guys just had a 2 or 3 year career, but they usually did something to keep them in your memory and everything.
when I was growing up and I opened up baseball cards, it was oh my gosh, I got a a so and so, or I got a Johnny Bench, or I've got a Brooks Robinson. I'm still excited when I open up baseball cards now, but it's not because I got somebody who's like, oh man, this brings back memories,
Oh
this is
yeah.
awesome. So, and I get more excited, as for the Cubs sticker than anything else. All right. Well, JJ, it's been fun. We
Had a
will
blast.
we will be back here next week. So in the meantime, is it Hanukkah yet? Is Hanukkah coming up?
I honestly don't know. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. No, I don't want to say happy Hanukkah. Let me look this up. Nah, we'll do it next week. So
All right.
I haven't seen any of my Jewish friends post online that it's Hanukkah. So I'm going to say it's probably not Hanukkah yet. So anyway, but happy beginning of December. So, all right. Thank
Sounds
you.
good. Take care.
All right.